what if we could create our own library to hold things like brand colors in the hex codes, frequently used image paths, translations, or maybe even entire blocks of code? Let's check it out. This is not operating system dependent. As long as you've got Visual Studio Code, you are ready to go. If not, check out the link in the card and I'll show you how to get that up and running on your computer. All right, we're here in Visual Studio Code, and what we're going to do is we're going to go up to Preferences, and we're going to go into User Snippets. This might look a little bit different on Windows, but there is a setting for this. Another way to get to this snippet section is by hitting Control or Command Shift P as in panel, and then we can type in snippets, and configure user snippets should come up for you. That's the same thing that we're going to look at. So it'll pop up in this little menu here, and all we're going to do is choose the language that we're going to be using for our snippets. Now this is a coding program, so the language in this case is coding languages. So if you don't have a preference or you're not into coding, go ahead and just use HTML. It's totally fine. So once we hit enter, it's going to bring up this brand new page for us. And it should probably look something similar to this. It's going to be an empty file if you haven't already used this before. And all of this stuff in here that's green is a comment, so it's not affecting anything, but it is giving us a little bit of framework for us to use as we're building out our snippets. Let's go ahead and add some spaces. I am going to, let's say we have a green color that we have as our brand color, and it's a very specific color, and we have the hex code for that, so the code that you can give to designers or developers so that they actually know what color we're talking about. So one of the easiest ways is actually to just copy this first section here, because they give us a little example. Let's paste it down below. And we're going to get rid of these slashes by hitting Command or Control /. And that removes the comments for the highlighted rows. Then I'm also going to tab these over just to keep it clean. Now we are ready to go. So the first thing we need to know is that this is kind of like our title, and it's going to help us know what snippet this is. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call this brand color. The next line here is the prefix. So that's the keyword essentially that you're typing in that triggers the program to give you that option to use it. So we're going to change this to, let's just call it brand. We can even do 2 words if we want to. So the body here is what's going to be replaced. Whenever you type this in, we're going to hit enter and it's going to replace whatever we've typed here in the prefix with the body. So what we can do is actually get rid of everything inside those double quotes. Keep the double quotes though, and we'll just put in a green color. So the description is for us to be able to read it, because we're going to get a list of options for these snippets. And so this is a great way to give us a little bit more detail if the title is not descriptive enough, because we do want to keep kind of shorter titles. So we're going to say green color for the brand, something like that. If I save this and I'm going to create a new file, I'm going to make this a HTML file. And if I start typing in we already have it. It's already picked us up as this is probably a snippet. And so we can see that our title here is right there. If we click on this arrow, we can see our description, and we can also see what it's going to fill in for us. And since we do want that, we're just going to hit enter, and boom, there is our color right there for us. We didn't have to look it up. We didn't have to ask somebody about it. We got it. If you like that first tip, go ahead and let me know. Okay, cool. So let's go back to the idea of maybe an image that you're using a lot. Maybe it's your logo image that you always need to be putting on documents in your code. This is going to be a good way to store that URL for you so you don't have to look it up every time. So what we're going to do, make sure we put a comma after this, because we are now going to add another snippet. We already have brand color, so that's why that's yellowed out. I'm going to type in, let's just say it's the logo URL, and for the prefix we're going to choose just logo URL. Keep it nice and simple, right? So let's just throw in a URL here. We'll pretend like that works. And so there is our URL. And for our description, we're just going to say this is the not defined tech logo. And we should hit save. And then we can go back to our HTML file. And now let's go down and see if we can now grab that URL really quickly. So logo, URL, hey look, we've already got it expanded even. We've got our description and we have the logo URL there. So if I hit enter again, boom, it's right there. So that's another one down. Let's do a language example. So let's say we're writing content, or we're using some content that we have on the site. We translate our content, and there's a couple of words that we just always kind of have a log of, so that we don't have to constantly be getting charged word for word, especially for things that are kind of common. And so one instance of this that I have used before is the translations for English in various languages. So the word English in different languages. So let's do that. Let's say we want to get the word English in Spanish. So what we're going to do is I'm going to type yes. And then in our body, what we're going to do is we're going to say Inglés. And I'm going to copy it so I can get the diacritical mark. Inglés. And the description. All right, so that should get us to where we need to be. So if we save this again, we go down here, we're going to type yes. Now we have Inglés all ready for us to go in our content, which is pretty darn cool. We can do that with, any kind of characters. Japanese, Chinese totally works here. I've used this before. These little marks, diacritical marks, totally work. It's a great way to store those and pull them out when you need them. Our last tip is to get your full code blocks into your text snippets, make things really fast. Here's an example. While I'm writing my blog on some keyboard shortcuts, I've realized that I have to constantly be making this table of the operating system and the keyboard combinations right here. And this gets pretty tedious. I don't want to have to do this all the time, so let's dive into the code to see how we can make this a template. All right, so this is the table that I've been using all the time on these articles. Basically, I just want this to become a template. I want to keep some of the content in there, including like the headers, the Windows, the Mac indicators there. The only thing I want to do is to make this line and this line editable. So one of the cool options for snippets in Visual Studio Code is to define the tab order. And so what that means is once we've initialized the snippet as we're typing, we hit enter, the cursor is going to automatically go to those places that we define. The way that we're going to do this is by adding a little token that will tell the computer where to place your cursor. So the $1 is going to tell it to go here first. And if we can add another one here, $2. And now we've got both of our tabs ready to go. So let's just format this up and get it ready to go into our snippets. I'm going to go to the very top here, and here's a little trick. If you hit Control Alt and the down arrow, we're going to copy our cursor to directly below where we currently are. So I'm going to do that all the way down to the bottom so that I have a cursor on every line. That way I can hurry and do quotes. Let's go to the very end here. I'm going to hit quotes again and a comma. And the reason this formatting is important is because I want the text snippet to display just like it is. I want to have those indentations and I want it to be on its own line. So what we do is put everything that you want on one line inside those quotes, put a comma, and then go to the next line. And that's how you're going to set up your formatting if you have multi-line snippets. So I'm going to copy all of this and we're going to paste it right in the body like we've done before. And I will just hurry and format that just for me. Hit save. And now remember our prefix, I have defined it as keys. So I'm going to go over here. Let's get rid of this and let's try out our text snippet. Keys. Boom, there we go. So you can see my cursor is actually right here where I wanted it to go first. If I hit tab, it's going to jump down to that table cell down there with my second tab order defined. So that is super cool. While you have not tabbed out of the range, you can still go Shift Tab if I want to go back up to that first one, tab again to go to the second one, etc. until I leave the tab order. So if I've defined 2 and I hit tab 3 times, now I'm out of the text snippet and it will go back to the typical function of a tab key. So that is how you get your code snippets into Visual Studio Code and makes everything so much faster when you're dealing with repetitive code blocks. If you want more tips on how to make tech work for you, hit subscribe.